In a whirlwind of outrage, accusations, and political backstabbing, Britain is grappling with a shocking new scandal rocking the Labour and Tory parties alike. Labour leaders have just dropped an explosive charge against top Tories, branding them as conspiracy mongers for suggesting a massive police cover-up in the horrifying Southport investigation. But that's just the beginning. Axel Rudakubana, a prime suspect in a triple murder with alleged ties to ricin production and Al-Qaeda materials, stands at the dark centre of this debacle. Amid fresh revelations, leadership hopefuls Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch accuse the government and police of withholding critical details, inciting outrage and calls for justice on both sides. Are these mere political games, or is there something deeper, a sinister secret lurking beneath this case? Now, let's dive into the latest bombshell updates on this controversy, where tensions are reaching a fever pitch. Jenrick and Badenoch's accusations of cover-ups and public deception have set the internet ablaze, and with Labour quick to brand these accusations as outlandish conspiracy theories, we're left wondering, what exactly is the truth behind Southport? Don't miss a second of this explosive, unravelling story as the back and forth between Labour, Tory leaders and the police reveal potentially career-ending secrets and truths that could shake Britain's political foundations to their core. Make sure you're subscribed and get ready to plunge into the gritty details of this scandal that's set to upend the country's trust in its leaders. In the quaint, unsuspecting town of Southport, tragedy struck earlier this year when Axel Rudakubana, a young man with a shadowy past, was arrested following the grisly murders of 3 local girls. What was initially seen as a horrifying but isolated case has now spiraled into a full-blown scandal, with allegations of government cover-ups, police silence, and politically charged accusations filling Britain's headlines. The entire country is on edge, wondering who they can trust as this disturbing case unfolds. Let's rewind to where this all began. The Southport attack, although bloody and tragic, was initially framed as an isolated act of violence, but the public grew uneasy as details began to emerge about Rudakubana's background, particularly concerning his alleged fascination with terror-related materials and hazardous substances, including the deadly toxin ricin. Suddenly, what seemed like a straightforward, though horrific, crime transformed into something much darker, with whispers of terrorism and bioweapons adding fuel to the fire. Now, amid mounting pressure and public interest, the Tory leadership contenders have seized on these fears, aiming scathing accusations at the government and the police, accusing them of a high-level cover-up to keep details of Rudakubana's terror-related activities under wraps. First came former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick, who publicly called for answers, stating that the government's reluctance to reveal details about Rudakubana's case felt intentional, as though there were information deliberately withheld from the public. Kemi Badenoch soon echoed these concerns, saying that serious questions should be asked of the police, the Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, and even Labour leader Keir Starmer himself. Badenoch didn't mince words, calling into question Starmer's response and his role in the unfolding scandal. By aligning themselves with public doubts and fears, Jenrick and Badenoch have positioned themselves as political whistleblowers, framing Labour's stance as one that's more about optics than transparency. Their comments were a direct jab at Labour's response to the murders and accusations of toxic involvement in controlling the narrative around the case. In response, Downing Street fired back, with a source at Whitehall branding the Tories' comments as reckless and accusing Jenrick and Badenoch of promoting conspiracy theories. Labour's statement went on to say that these accusations were not only unfounded, but were also dangerous, adding that political fear-mongering has no place in a case involving such heart-wrenching losses. Labour's stance, rather than looking for the truth, the Tories are exploiting a tragedy for political gain. Labour's Whitehall source continued, stating that if this is the direction the Tory leadership is headed, then the party was abandoning any respect for law and order and choosing instead to drag public institutions like the police into the political mud. They stressed that undermining the credibility of police investigations would only create more chaos, anxiety, and division at a time when trust in institutions was critical. The situation took another turn when Rudakubana, already charged with murder, was also slapped with charges under the Terrorism Act. He is accused of producing a biological toxin, which is an offence under the Biological Weapons Act of 1974, making this case one of the most complex and politically sensitive investigations in recent memory. Despite this, the police remain steadfast, stating that the Southport murders are not being treated as a terrorist incident. This stance, however, has done little to quell the calls for transparency from the right, who argue that there's far more to the story than what's being disclosed to the public. Jenrick doubled down, saying, "For months we were assured this was not a terror-related incident, and yet here we are, learning that this individual had access to dangerous substances like ricin and was allegedly reading Al-Qaeda manuals." He pressed further, asking why this information wasn't shared earlier, and demanding to know when the authorities knew about Rudakubana's supposed terror connections and why they chose not to inform the public. The Conservative politician's implication is clear: the authorities, and potentially Labour leadership, knew much more than they were letting on, and made a conscious choice to keep these explosive details hidden. Meanwhile, Labour continues to rebuff these accusations, framing the Tories' outcry as an irresponsible attempt to manipulate a tragedy for political advantage. But these rebuffs only add fuel to the fire, with many citizens wondering, if there's truly nothing to hide, why not release more information? Public trust in institutions, especially in law enforcement, has been precarious in recent years, and this case is testing it further. As both sides dig in their heels, the pressure on police and government officials to disclose more information grows, as does public unrest. Amid the political back and forth, one question hangs in the air. Is the government hiding the truth from the people, or are political contenders simply using a devastating tragedy as a stepping stone to power? The implications of this case extend beyond Southport. With the 2024 elections on the horizon, this scandal could shape public opinion, especially among voters who are weary of political theatrics and crave genuine accountability. Jenrick and Badenoch's accusations have stirred a hornet's nest, and with Labour steadfastly denying any wrongdoing, the stage is set for an explosive showdown. In a bid to refocus the debate, some senior government officials have suggested that both parties sit down and discuss national security and police transparency in an open forum. However, with both sides at each other's throats, such a resolution seems unlikely. The stakes are high, and this scandal may well lead to long-lasting changes in how cases of national security are handled in the public sphere. As the story develops, all eyes are on Southport, Labour and the Tories, watching closely for any slip-ups, new revelations, or decisive moves that could shift the narrative. With the public demanding answers and politicians using every turn of phrase to their advantage, the Southport scandal is shaping up to be one of the most pivotal moments in modern British politics, a tale of tragedy, secrecy, and the insatiable thirst for power.